Hello,
How are you?
I are good. I are good. I'm getting my cup of tea.
Yeah. I have my little hot water here. I'm just finishing up a peppermint.
Ah,
I had a little tickle. I was cleaning and I
it's funny, I have a tickle too. There's
yeah.
just tickle there, and people hear you cough and they go,
Oh,
"Are you sick? Are you sick? Are you
I
sick?"
know. And see, I
No.
have a slight
No.
dog allergy that I've developed. Dust and dogs, the two things that live in my house. About 3 years ago, I found out that I was actually, and so when I clean or
Yeah.
I do stuff down in the dog room, it all dust, right. Exactly. Yeah. And I keep telling myself be better about staying on top of all that dust and stuff. And funny how
Yeah,
that I don't want to do it. So
yeah, yeah, that's no fun.
yeah, it's no fun.
Before I let anybody else in, there are two people waiting.
Okay.
Anything we want to go over, review, da 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 dee? I think we're good, right?
I think we are. Yeah, no, I think we are. We already talked about, not really doing questions in the chat room. That's going to make me feel so much more comfortable.
Right,
I,
right.
and again, it's not, my vision is not that anybody's going to leave here today and be able to do this. Can you not hear me?
I can. Mhm.
Okay. I don't think they're going to be able to do this 100%. It's more the concept, the idea, pique their interest to learn more.
Yeah, and use pieces of it.
Yep.
I'm gonna show what is a very incomplete
Uh-huh.
411. And it
Yeah,
doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be beautiful. It
exactly.
needs to be helpful.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's all.
Mhm.
That's all.
Yeah,
Right.
I didn't make anything beautiful. My
Yeah.
GPS is kind of beautiful, but that's because
Well, I have a nice GPS I'm going to share,
yeah,
and it's not necessarily mine,
right.
but it is one. And I tweaked it. I took the one that Jenny shared, and I dumbed it
Right.
down. I'm
Yeah,
not trying to
yeah,
do 185 houses with a team this year, but
right.
the bones were there that I just kind of worked so people can see. And I have a blank one to show as well.
Good. Perfect. I think
Yeah.
we're good. I'm gonna let the peeps in. I think
Okay.
we're good. We'll
Sounds
go
good.
in and we can start talking at them.
Yeah. Well, let's wait. We'll let the people in, but we do have about.
Yeah, we're not gonna start our thing
Okay.
yet. Well,
Yeah.
and we can, oh, we are we are recording.
Oh, okay. Alrighty.
All of our preview
That's
is recorded.
fine. That's absolutely fine.
Oh, golly. Good,
But
good.
don't you sense this is a Zoom? Wouldn't you have to post it somewhere for anybody to see the replay? It isn't like,
Yes, but
yeah.
we do post everything. So, yeah, so we're all, um, you know, Donna and I just recorded our little pre-show, so. Hello, ladies.
I know. So you'll hear what we talked about before you got here.
Oh, boy.
Oh,
Hi, everybody. This
Hey,
is
Miss Donna Gilbert.
so exciting. Hi. How are you?
Hi.
Mhm.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Who's
Hey.
Moto Z4?
It's Tama. Hi.
Oh, okay.
How are you?
Is that your nickname everybody knows but me?
Well, everyone's been calling me that lately because
Oh,
of
I
me.
see.
They're like Tamamoto.
I have heard them say Tamamoto now that you
Yeah.
say it. Yeah.
Yeah, the Moto is just my phone's name. So
Okay. Got it. Got
hey,
it.
Donna, off the top of your head, when permits, there's that law now that if permits are over X amount, you don't have.
okay then. So thank you guys for coming. Welcome. Donna and I are really excited to do this class together with you today. And I'll tell you, I have always looked at the 411 particularly as one of the most underutilized Keller Williams tools in the toolbox. And in the last couple of months, Donna and I have had the opportunity to listen through James Shaw's morning group to a couple of explanations and descriptions of using these in a practical way. And both of us had light bulbs go on. The one morning I texted Donna and she said, I wanted to do that too. I think we should be doing this. So, so we feel like there are a couple of truly hacks and just different ways of looking at the 411 and the GPS that make them practical. And the first piece, did anybody who's on the call get a chance to watch the Gary Keller video that we sent? Yeah, so
Yes.
he laid out a few things in there that we have incorporated into this. So, and we do want this to have some interaction. So get your questions ready, jot down your questions, and at some point we will have an opportunity for you to chat. So Gary says it's not about what you accomplish this year, and he said that in the video, but where you are along your path to your big life goals. And that alone really kind of, brought me up short. Because we're looking out into the future with these tools, and then it's both far out and then bringing it right back to our daily experience so that we can watch ourselves incrementally day by day get closer to those goals. So this it's just cultivating your way toward those goals. So Donna is going to start us with the thinking behind creating a really powerful GPS with the intention of what's it going to take for you, us, any of us, to win the Super Bowl of life, basically. So we'll let Donna take it away.
Well, that's a lofty goal, but let's see. Let's see how we can attack that. And like Debbie said, this past 8 months or so, we've been spending an hour almost every morning, listening, thinking, talking, hearing how these tools are being used from people who are using them at a really high level. And we talk about other things, but that was the thing. And James Shaw challenged all of us that if there is something that either excites you or you really want to learn better, teach it. That's what's brought me here. So GPS and 411 are tools that I have heard of, I've read about, I've taken the class, and yet I didn't really have a firm grasp. And recently, they all magically came together, how interconnected they are and what a powerful tool they can be. So if you haven't watched that little video that Debbie sent out, please do after, because it will clarify so many things. The other thing is, a lot of what we're going to talk about has to do with 3 books. And the first one, of course, is the Red Book. If you don't have this, and if you haven't read it 7 or 8 times, please go back, because every time you read it, you'll find something different. This is the other one that you should really, really spend some time with. It was written for when the market fell off the cliff back in the early 2000s, and yet it's so appropriate for what we're going through right now. And then the last one is The One Thing. Okay, also Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, who are the 2 speaking to you on the video. A lot of what we're going to talk about is referenced directly from those 3 books. Really, you owe it to yourself to do it. So when we're talking about the GPS and the 411, it starts before that. It actually starts with a couple of things. One is the annual goal setting that we've done every year, the business planning sessions that we do back in October. And it's basically essential to do that so you have an idea of what you need to live, what you need to be totally free of debt, how many transactions, how many appointments, all that detail that we do. You need to have that. And we all do it. And if we are really good, we look at it once a quarter. If we are typical, maybe we look at it every 6 months. And then the rest of us, we look at it once a year. I mean, let's just be honest. So this is the way, so everybody could mute. Thank you. So one of the things this allows you to do is get into a deep relationship with your goals and what your plans are for the future. The GPS is the plan. The 411 is the process or the tracking of the plan. And then when you add that to coaching and accountability, you become really purposeful about the plans that you've created. And it gives you direct times when you're supposed to be visiting it. When Debbie goes into hers, you'll see how it's a daily thing. It's something you have to visit with. I'm looking over here because this is where my notes are. So we talk in Keller Williams, in Bold, in lots of the exercises, a lot of the classes about creating that life by design. So to do that, we actually have to look out far into the distance. We're going to begin today with the end in mind. That is Stephen Covey, if anybody is familiar with the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And so we do that in several exercises. So that we can really figure out why we're doing this business, our big why. We've talked about that as well. You've heard that over and over again. This is why I'm saying it all brings it together. And so one of the things that you're going to want to do is make sure that you understand what your big goal is and to really plug into what's going to take you to that place. What do I do today that gets me out 20 years, 40 years, depending on how old you are, so that you can be appropriate today for all of your tomorrows that are coming up. One of the things that we do is really understand that to not be an average real estate agent or an average person, because you'll see that this overlays not just your business, but any part of your life. One of the things that we need to understand is that a real estate agent actually has a job description. And those 5 things, lead generation, follow-up, appointments, writing contracts, negotiating, and practicing scripts and role-playing, those should be somewhere in your day every day. You also have to understand that one of the building blocks is the 6 personal perspectives and what they mean. And reading through some of these books and living with them, you'll find that it's committing to mastery, living in the 80-20 principle, going from E to P, deciding that you're going to be more purposeful. You're not just going to fly by the seat of your pants and doing what you've done because you've gotten some success. Because now you have goals that you're striving for. Being learning based, that's what we're doing here today. Removing your limiting beliefs. I mean, a week ago, I didn't think, I'm going to be teaching a class on GPS. I'm just barely figuring it out myself. And yet, in the last, 3-4 days, Debbie, that we've really been digging into this, oh my God. Have I really gotten into relationship with this? Absolutely. Do I get it deeper? Yes. So again, be learning based and then share it, teach it with someone, and you will be the one who learns it better. And then be accountable. So Thursday at 1 o'clock, we're going to be teaching. That puts a lot of accountability onto your plate. So that's how it all ties together. And Gary, in the little video, and this was the thing that Debbie was talking about, and it hit me hard too. He said, annual goal setting shouldn't be about what's my goal this year. It should be, where am I on my path to my end goal? And my end goal is actually the end of my career or the end of my life, if we're talking about some sort of life goal.
Give an example. Give the example of what Gary does for his health and his life. Because he wants to.
He would like to live to 100 at least. Okay,
yeah, 100 or more.
100 or more. 100 or more. And so to achieve that, he actually takes steps every single day that makes that more possible. So it says, that, measuring success is not based on the 365 days. It's to measure over the length of your career. Here was the other thing that he said that like blew my mind. And this gets back to the wanting to live to be 100 or wanting to sell 30 homes or whatever. He said, the purpose of a goal is not to achieve a result. That kind of flies in the face of everything we're saying, right? Here's the second part. The purpose of the goal is to know how to be appropriate in the moment on the way to your someday goal. So if I want to live to be 100, health is going to be a big thing. Exercise is going to be a big thing. Food is going to be a big thing. Here's being appropriate in the moment for that goal. I have a salad instead of the French fries.
Yep.
It sounds really, really simple. We all know it. And yet, if that truly is a goal that you're committed to, it allows you to be more purposeful about your next step at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning, when you pick up your first phone call, you know why you're doing it. Because, it's kind of raining. I'd kind of like to lounge around. It's COVID. I'm having my sweatpants on. But that allows you to remember why, getting back to your big why. Debbie, did you want to add anything to that?
It did. In the categories that he measures, his 7 circles, one of the things that I loved was his relationships, and that he said his goal for his marriage is to be married when he dies. And
yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
That defines your life too, doesn't it, Donna?
Absolutely. And what's so beautiful about that is how simple it is.
Exactly.
My goal for my marriage is to be married when I die. I'd write a whole paragraph and we should do this and blah, 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 and that's great. And yet what we're talking about today is stripping it away to that bare essential item. And again, in the one thing, we talk about the domino theory a lot, and that would be the first domino to line up so that he achieves that goal. So that means every day he is appropriate in his relationship with his wife so that he can still be married on the day he dies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, really simple. Debbie, if you could share your screen, I'll put up the 7 circles. Give me power to.
There you go. There you go.
Okay. This is the part that drove me crazy. So hopefully.
You'll do it.
Okay. Is that there? There, yay! First domino down. Literally, that was the thing that kept me up. So here is the 7 circles. And this comes right out of the One Thing book. And this is what we're talking about. These are 7 essential areas of your life. And you can have a plan or a thought or a feeling, GPS 411, for each one of these circles. Okay, so you'll see your spiritual life, your physical health. You get the point. You can read them on there. If you have the One Thing, this is on page 114. And in each category, you could even have a mentor. You could have someone who assists you in that. That's the accountability portion. And you can visit these, the suggestion for the GPS with your annual goal setting. You're going to create your GPS for each one of these particular circles. You get out 7 pieces of paper. You write out the topics at the top of each one of those papers, and you then decide. You just put out there what it is you want for your physical health. So that would be exercise. That would be what you're going to eat. That might mean that you're going to go somewhere to a retreat and do yoga for a week. Whatever it is, you just dump it all out on the paper. And then you spend a little time thinking about each one of those. And we're going to, obviously today, we're more about business, but I wanted you to see that this is so useful in every single part of your life. You spend some time with all of that you've put on your sheets of paper, and then you start to chunk it down. You just have to decide what it is you really want in your life and chunk it down to the most important items. So again, this is the difference between a GPS and then you'll see a 411. This is a difference between making just a list of things. This that's why we're not calling it a list, we're calling it a brain dump. You just get it all out there. And then you start to decide between the things you've put down, what's most important so we can come up with our priorities.
And this is dream time. This is where you look out, and the date that people have been using is you look out to 2040, which kind of scares me, guys. That's like, whoa, woof, woof.
Right.
But look out that far and design, paint the picture of what you want your life to look like in each of these categories. And then ultimately, you're going to pull it back and focus on maybe 3 of these categories at one time. And yet they're all out there to be included in your subconscious, in your mind, right?
And one of the exercises, and we do visit the 7 circles in bold, the old bold, and I'm pretty sure we do it in the new bold too, is you kind of look at it and decide, where am I strong? Which of these circles am I strong in? What circle would I like to improve in? Because if you think of it as this wheel rolling down the road, you want it to be somewhat equal. You want to be firing on all cylinders, but there might be a cylinder, maybe my spiritual life could use a boost. And so maybe that becomes a priority for this GPS because you feel that it's a little bit out of balance and you'd like it to be a little bit stronger. Or maybe it's one of your key relationships needs to be improved on. I could see you want to say something.
Well, yeah, and one of the exercises with the 7 circles is on a scale of 1 to 10, you dump out where you want to be in 20 years and then evaluate where you are now and say, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm an 8 on this, I'm a 6 on this, and I'm a 7 on this. And you choose the ones that you want to work on. And what they say is, what do they say, Donna? If you raise one by 1 point,
yes,
it tends to
it rolls over into the other circles. So if I'm really working on my spiritual life, let's just say, or my finances, it doesn't really matter.
Whatever.
But all of a sudden you'll see an improvement in other parts, other circles. Now, I personally believe that's because you started to focus on the things that were driving you crazy and maybe holding you back, and the self-talk that we have that sometimes is not positive. When you start to focus on it, you can start to see improvement in that area. It kind of frees you, and you actually do become a better person. You're happier, you can take more risks because you feel a little bit more in control. That's my theory. That's my theory.
Say that again. Because that's really important. This is about gaining control over where you want to end up.
Exactly. We're going to visit that again in so many ways because it's also about deciding what you want, designing what your life will be, not looking at somebody else's life and saying, oh, well, they're doing that, I should be doing that. Yeah. So this is, and maybe you should. I mean, I'm not saying don't do that. And yet, maybe you look and you say, well, on my list of things that I want to do in my life, in my business, that's like priority 7. So let's work on the top 5. Let's make a plan for those. And if I get to the other one, that's great. So this is about you taking control of your life. So the next thing, at this point, now we're getting to goal setting to the now. And that is exactly what Debbie was talking about. That's looking out to 2040, 20 years from now. deciding what your goals will be. Let's just say, just for purposes of this conversation, that 2040 is the kind of like the end point. Whatever your end point is, that's the day we're talking about. What do you want the goals to have been that you achieved and you are now living? You've either accomplished them or now this is the way my life looks. That's what your 2040 goals are. And then you will step it back to 10 years from now. Where would I need to be in 10 years so that I will then eventually do another 10 years and be to my 2040 goal? Okay, then you step it back even further. What would I need it to look like in 5 years? What would have to be in place in 5 years so that I could meet the 10-year goal so I can get to my 2040 goal? Okay, you see how we're beginning with the end in mind. And then once we get the 5-year thinking, and you can write this down on paper if you're that kind of a person, or you could just be mulling it around, doodling it if you're that kind of person. But eventually you go from the 5-year dream, plan, goals to the 1 year, the 2021 goal. That's how we start to do the goal setting to the now. We've looked way far out. We've stepped it back in chunks. These are my priorities. Now we are here today, 2021. And that, my friends, is your GPS. And a GPS stands for goal, priority, and strategies. Specifically, it's one goal. So one goal in one of these areas, one goal, 3 priorities. So remember, we did that whole brain dump onto the paper, and maybe I have, 15 things. You need to whittle it down to 3, because then they become what? A priority, not just something I want to do, hope to do, I need to do, if I get to it. No, 3 priorities. These are the 3 most important things. And then the 5 is the strategies. For that number 1 priority, what do I do that helps me achieve that 1 priority? And those priorities help me achieve my goal. Now, there are a lot of books, MREA, The One Thing, Shift, go on any conference with Gary Keller or Jay Papasan or lots of other really important people. They will tell you that until your first priority is done, you really don't have a second priority. And yet the GPS says 1 goal, 3 priorities, 5 strategies. Debbie, anything?
Yes, and it just flew out of my mind.
Okay, well, I'm gonna
You know what it was? It was vacation time. Repeat what Gary Keller says about his vacation time and how he, in his personal world, what he does with that.
Why don't you do that while I'm trying to figure out how to switch the screen?
Okay, perfect. So I've never, I think a lot of people have struggled with the concept of book your vacation and your off time first in your calendar. 12 months and take the calendar, take the vacation time and put it in there. And Gary says something that really freed me about this. And he says, you book the vacation time you might want to take.
Right.
It doesn't have to have a destination, but and think about this in terms of your year. I've talked to a lot of agents who kind of brag, quote unquote, that they haven't had a vacation in 5 years. That's not impressive.
No,
Gary
it's a
Keller-
life by design. And I'm sure
yeah.
if you were designing your own life, that would not be the plan.
Gary Keller writes in 1 or 2 weeks every other month. So 6 months of the year, he's got at least 1 week that's off. And he says, it's because, I love this. This is about the planning phase and the white space and the brain space. It's because I might need that time. And maybe I'll decide I want to go someplace.
Yeah.
If I have the time booked, in my calendar, it becomes a possibility. That's the big thinking that defines how he works with this tool, with this process.
Yes, yeah. Here's the other thing about that Gary says. You need to book vacation. You need time off. And people, you might say, well, he's Gary Keller. He can book a 2-week vacation every 6 weeks. And yet you need downtime to reflect. You need downtime to think. You need that time to work on your business, on yourself, on the relationships. If you don't have time to do the other things in life, first of all, what's the point? Remember, the point of business is to fund the perfect life. You may not have any relationship that you have to worry about because you didn't plan the time for it. Just like our goals that at the beginning I said, our goals you need to spend some time and get into deep relationship with. You have to spend some time with the other people who are important in your life. And one of those people should be you. So yeah, so booking, planning, blocking out time for you and your family members or whoever is important to you, it's critical.
And in the spirit of taking this in bite-sized chunks, maybe you just book a few long weekends that you're going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Right. And they could be the staycation. You know, there's amazing stuff all around where you live that you don't get a chance to visit with. It doesn't have to be, it's just unplugging, knowing that it's in the schedule and actually executing on it. Most of this, Debbie, you and I have talked about this. Most of this is all about a pattern of consistent execution.
Mm-hmm.
It should be executing on your downtime as well.
Right.
So I put up a blank example of what a GPS looks like. And you see, and this one is out of the One Thing playbook. And yet there are plenty of Keller Williams examples on Command and Command University, all of that. This just happens to be the basic framework of what a GPS is. Your one goal goes up here at the top where it says my one thing for the year is. And so for your category today, we're talking about business. Most of the circles fall into professional or personal. We're talking about professional today, and professional could be business, your job. Money and wealth tends to be looked at slightly to its own self because it may not just be the business that you do with real estate. You may have other areas that contribute to that. And I think Gary encourages us to look at our money as its own separate thing and really concentrate on where you want that to go as well.
Yeah, I think that's because he believes fervently and is teaching us to believe the same, that our financial goal is to achieve a freedom number.
Right.
And that freedom number he defines as if you had no other business and nothing, you had no job and no business, you have sufficient passive income to live your life and pay your bills. And think about the planning and the assessing and the evaluating that you need to do to know what that number is. And then as part of your long-range GPS, design a plan to achieve that. That's that. And so that's really, the finances become a business by themselves because he says, I don't want to have to worry about that. That's one of his other big long-range goals.
Right. And that freedom number becomes really important for your future goal setting and planning to the now. What are the steps that you're taking now so that you will be, let's just say, for example, a woman that is on our call on a regular basis over the 8 months, she's become credit card debt free. I mean, she still has a mortgage, but she's become credit card debt free. And that was because she put a GPS to it. She created a GPS to it and decided to be really committed to doing what it takes. Thinking really big. I want to be debt free and I want to have a certain amount of money coming in so I don't have to be worried about a job or how many houses I sold or if my stock portfolio. So whatever the situation is, thinking really big so that you could go small in the little details, and you're linking up all the decisions you're making today to your future tomorrows. And
Exactly.
it's basically the guidance and the structure that this provides for you. And when I say structure, we found out that a lot of people, I found out that a lot of people who actually commit to this sort of thing and then take it to the next step, Debbie's going to cover the 411, they find out how freeing having this structure freed them to do so many other things. And I think that is kind of like the confusing part of it. This actually gives you enough of a framework that then, Gary's always saying, if you win the day by 12 o'clock, you have the rest of the day to do, for things for the wheels to come off or for everything to go right or to have it, but you've done what you were supposed to do, those 5 things that the real estate agent's job, in this case, we're back to real estate, you've gotten them accomplished. So you have met your priorities and the strategies within them. So for this one, this is just an example of what it looks like. And I am now going to put up one that is, I forgot to lower that one. This is where the talking part was not the hard part. The moving the stuff around was the hard part. This is, here it comes. Come on, baby. There we go. This is just an example. And I'm not saying this is mine. This is not necessarily mine. And yet it is bits and pieces of a few other people who have been brave enough to share their goals and their GPSs. So you can kind of just get a basic framework of what it might look like. And in this one, the categories were to lead gen to your Met database to make sure that you're getting all the referrals that and business out of there and stay connected and be in relationship with your Met database. And so the goal was to get leads. The goal is to my number one priority. This goal is 30 families to help 30 families in 2021. The first priority is leads. You'd be surprised to find out that the second priority is listings. And the third priority in this was leverage. Okay, I figured just go to the red book, just follow that model for the example. It's easy enough. And yet it's a great example to work off of, especially if you're doing your very first one or even your second one or your third one before you're feeling really comfortable with this. That's the other important point here that we kept hearing over and over again. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it's best if it isn't. Just get it all out there. Start somewhere. That's the most important thing, and follow through with it.
What I like about the things that I see on here are their reminders.
Yes.
You can't do all of this at once. You can't do all of this even in 1 month. And yet you plan it out, you design it ahead, and then you can select on a weekly basis what
Right.
the focus is, right?
Exactly. And Debbie's going to dive deep into that. That's more of what so if the GPS, the G is kind of the why. Why am I going? The goal is, why am I doing this? The destination. We're going from here to Los Angeles. We need to know the priorities. What are we going to do to get us there? What route are we going? How many days are we going to be on the road? Who at home needs to know where I am, playing for the dog sitter? That's all the stuff that goes into that. And then the strategy is how. It's the play inside the plan. And you can see that clearly here. And like Debbie said, these are reminders of things you know are important and will allow you to achieve your goal. Now, It's interesting to know, we found out from listening to lots of people talk, is that this is the business one. And we can do it for all the lofty goals that we were talking about before, with your physical health and your business and your spiritual health and everything. You can do a GPS for just about anything. Didn't we find that out, Debbie?
Yeah.
And there are people who are actually you're doing a pie giveaway event. Your GPS becomes something as simple as the goal is to give away 30 pies to my Met database. So my first priority is everything I do before. My second priority is everything I do on that day. And my third priority is everything I do after the event. It becomes as simple as that. Another example was there was a woman who decided she was going to run a marathon. Yeah, she ran a couple of miles, but she just got it in her head. And so when is it going to be? What do I do now? What do I need in my life? I need to find out what marathoners do. I need to strengthen core. Maybe I need a coach. You start to dump it all down there. So if you want to sell 30 houses, help 30 families, you start by saying, okay, here's the larger goal. What are 3 things that I know that are the most important things that I do? Debbie?
It's so interesting. As we've talked through this, Donna and I've talked through this several times, and every time something new pops into my head. And,
Right.
and the new for this is that so many agents think that, well, real estate, you can't ever plan out what you're going to earn in a year. You can't really anticipate to have regular income. That thought is being challenged by this exercise, because you can determine your results by following a plan such as this that covers so many bases, one step at a time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The most important thing is that you start somewhere. The second thing is it does not need to be perfect. Get it down on the paper, get it into the forms, start visiting with it. If you're like, well, I don't know what's, I'm not quite sure. Spend some time thinking about your big why. We've done the mission statement exercise many times in many classes. And it wasn't until this year, this was my gift from COVID. And I do apologize if that offends anyone, because I know we all lost, if not family members, friends, that sort of thing, or just seeing what's been happening. And yet it's allowed me to go deep in some areas that, frankly, I didn't even realize how interesting would be once I started going deep in them. But one was my mission statement. And your mission statement is what's going to help you with is going to help you define your big goal. Because once you know what it is that drives you, and I found out, I'd been walking around kind of saying it was my superpower, but then it turned into my mission statement, and I didn't quite, that was a miracle for me. But once you have that clear, I'm telling you, everything else falls into place. You know why you're doing everything. You know also what to say yes to, and you know what to say, yeah, no, I'm okay. I'm fine. Now, I'll read you my mission statement, because it's giving me goosebumps. I love it. It's very simple. And that was the thing. Over years, it's gotten simpler and simpler and simpler until finally it said, my mission statement is simple. I just started that way. It says, it's to help others, mostly women, step into their power. I achieve this by showing up as my authentic self, providing leadership, kindness, courage, and truth. I'll hold your hand as we boldly go forward into our tomorrow. Once I got that down on paper, I can't tell you how simple my life has become. Now I'm looking at the screen, and there are several of you on here, and I know I'm many years down the path, further down the path. And with age does come clarity if you're paying attention. And I that's something else I've realized, that it is a path, that it is a journey, and you can take some control of it if you spend some time thinking about it. And I think these are great. So I'm preaching, way too much preaching, but I think that these tools are so powerful. And that's why Debbie and I got so excited. We wanted to work there. Debbie, I'm basically finished with the GPS. So add whatever, and then maybe we'll open it up for a nanosecond.
So yeah, before we move on to 411, who has a question for or needs some clarity on any aspect of what we've just talked about in the GPS?
And one thing to know is, no, neither Debbie nor I expect you to leave this class and feel like, oh, I can go do this. It's just a way to enter the subject and perhaps have curiosity about wanting to know more.
And Debbie, could you, Donna, excuse me, Donna, could you repeat the mission statement just one more time or write it in the chat?
My personal one?
Yeah, I just want to hear it again.
Okay. My mission statement is simple: to help others, mostly women, step into their power. I achieve this by showing up as my authentic self, providing leadership, kindness, courage, and truth. I'll hold your hand as we boldly go forward into our tomorrows. And I will try to put that in the chat.
Good.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
Any ahas? If you don't have a question, was
Yeah,
there anything that
exactly. Mhm.
stepped out at you? Oh dear. Nobody got anything. Okay.
You know, I've struggled with trying to put stuff to paper before. And when you said it doesn't need to be perfect, in fact, it shouldn't, that takes kind of a load off, because now I'll probably start it.
You're
Was that-
welcome.
I haven't started it because I didn't know if it was going to be perfect, right? So
We
Yeah.
like that concept of brain dump.
Yes.
And it's carrying a pad around with you, and as something comes into your mind, going, sketching it down, just jotting it down, and just capturing it for when you can put it into context. Because there are so many ideas. I mean, the idea of financial future with, we all are relatively comfortable. Why do we need more? Well, think about it. Is there anybody in your world who you could help if you had more? And does that matter to you? That's one of my core drivers, actually. I want to always be able to be generous. And so that keeps me going on a daily basis, really.
Right.
Mhm.
I know that about you.
So much fun. So now we're going to pull this right down into the todayness of our business and of our lives. And if the 411 captures your priorities to take you to your destination, and someone said that going in the right direction involves not intentions. And I'll tell you, we all have wonderful intentions, but it's direction that determines where we land. And this helps us stay moving in the right direction toward those goals, and not just have wishes and hopes in our head, but have a real roadmap and path for getting there. So you may be familiar with, and I for some reason, I didn't digitize the blank of this, so I'm just going to hold it up. There are 3 sections, and it's capturing your annual goals first, and then what you want to accomplish monthly in this month, and then breaking it down. And I use my 411 is a weekly 411. So I put my annual goals on the sheet, and I copy it 12 times. And then each month I put my monthly goals in, and then those get copied 3 more times so that I have a sheet for each week that has this year's goals and this month's goals. And then I develop what I need to do on a weekly basis. You don't predict next week before you've covered this week. And that's kind of important. You capture it in a monthly picture of where you want to go. And then you make the specifics week by week by week. So,
Debbie,
Mhm.
so hi girls. So if you don't reach one of your goals in that week, you carry it over to the following week?
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about the schedule. So this process requires that you sit still for 30 minutes every week and look back and look forward and look at that GPS that you have. I'll go into my screen. I think we're over here. And I think I've got this underneath. We have done can I move it? There I go. A team GPS. And like the one that you saw on Donna's screen, for some reason, this is not, there it goes. Now it's moving. We have for a database, we have VIP events intended, getting everybody fully subscribed on Neighborhood Nurtures, one newsletter to go out a month, with all these little pieces. And so they're going to then go, pieces of those are going to go into every week, not everything, but one at a time. So we have, for example, this week, and that's over here, we have database, contact 50 of our past clients and sphere of influence to drum up listings. That's the whole point. And we're calling this is my 411. I'm calling all of the past clients from 2019 and 2020 this year. So if I don't get that finished, Jennifer, if I reach the end of the week and I only got to 30, yes, my next week will add those remaining 20 and whatever else I put on there for going forward for the next week, because I realize I didn't achieve that goal. If I wrote the goal down, it must have been important.
Right.
And how do I know it's important? It fits, it's a puzzle piece in the whole puzzle of where we want to end this year.
And I'll just add something to that, because I think that this is something that came up that was important too. So yeah, you do roll it over to the next week. And yet you also, in that 30-minute thinking time, you also have to spend some time figuring out why you didn't hit that goal. It isn't a get out of jail free card. It isn't, well, I'll just put it in the next week. It isn't as simple as that, because there was something that occurred in that week that kept you from achieving all of those steps. Now, nobody's saying you have to achieve it every single week perfectly. That's not it. The point of writing this down is to spend some time thinking about why, because that means something has to change. Because that same thing could happen the next week and the week after and the week after, and before you know it, we're going to Chicago instead of LA. It's just, you have to spend some time figuring out why. Now, one of the reasons why it could have been, well, this was too much for 1 week. That is a possibility. Or it could be a squirrel ran by and I didn't stay focused. But see, that is what gives you the strength to stay on task and to decide, are your goals something you hope you're going to hit? Or are your goals something you're committed to hitting? So you have to do the analyzing. And to tell you the truth, now that I'm looking at this, Debbie, you said, we've been through this 1,000 times and yet new things are coming up. I mean, this is the conversation I have every week with my mastery coach.
Yes,
This
correct.
is it.
That's right. It's
Did you
exactly
do
right.
what we said we were going to do this week? If not, why? And what are we going to do next week?
Donna, what Donna just said about, is it a wish or is it a commitment, is
Right.
huge. And
Right.
what you're doing here, I've seen people, make things really pretty and wonderful and never hit those goals. What you're intending to do here is what and I emphasize that with capital letters and bold and an underline, your priorities are. What is important to you to obtain your goals? And if you have, and we keep saying relationship, if you have a relationship with those priorities and those goals, you won't let the distractions pull you away. And oh my goodness, there are distractions,
Everywhere. Right.
never ending.
Yeah.
And then the last piece I'm going to say about that, and I hope somebody's connecting these dots, is you build those things, and these are the things that happen between whenever your morning starts and noon.
Right.
And after that, you can be interrupted by whatever. It doesn't matter. After that, the distractions can come in. What we do on the front of this doc, and you can see I've left a couple of these things out just because they're I
Yeah.
don't want to
personal.
share them, but
Right, exactly.
it doesn't have to be full. Not every line has to be full.
Right.
And what I find is helpful is the month is the most helpful, because you can plan out a lot of good things in a month, and this helps you capture it so you don't forget the second weekend. What was I doing this month? What was I supposed to accomplish? Where was I supposed to finish this month?
Yeah.
And it gives you a week and another week to figure it out and get it done.
Actually,
And-
it gives you a chance to self-correct
Correct.
before we're off and way out of control. And now it's like, now what do I do now?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I'm going to pause there and ask if anybody has any questions. Does that make sense? And these documents are all over the place on Connect. You can find these on the One Thing. If you go to the onething.com, you can find free versions of this, and they're all different kinds of versions. These are just the ones that I use.
Yeah.
The other piece about this 411, where you keep your annual and your monthly and your weekly tactics, is the back of it. This is Donna's favorite thing. The back of it captures
Yes.
all the rest of the stuff.
Yeah.
Everything that's not really the immediate 20% to get you your results. These are the miscellaneous things that you don't want to lose. You've got to keep them in front of you, and you want to see where you can fit them into your schedule. And yet you need a place to put them. And the back of your 411 is a fabulous place, because then it's part of your weekly routine of your review of your week.
They're not in 1,000 little stickies and little notes everywhere. It's right there. And for me, it's all the squirrels, all the shiny objects, all the things that pop into my brain that take me away from my 20%, sometimes even take me away from whatever the major goal was I was supposed to achieve. Now I know a place to capture it, and on my calendar, I have time blocked a period in the week for an hour where I actually spend time looking at the back of those sheets. So I don't have to worry about when I'm going to get to it. I know it up front.
I have one of the things that I do from a family perspective is I know that at least every other month I have to see a kid. or a couple of kids, whoever they are. I'm not compromising on that. I don't care what. So that goes into my plan, and we had a January visit with kids away. We're going to have a March visit. Then we're going to have an April visit as well. So then we may not have May, I don't know. But I know that those are going to happen. And I don't let that just be by chance.
I love that.
Very deliberate.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is, and this is just because I'm a little obsessed. Sunday mornings, does anybody know what my Sunday morning is? Rick has mentioned it once or twice.
You visit. Mhm.
But my Sunday is Money Sunday. From like 6 o'clock in the morning until whenever I'm done, I spend time on finances. And it's so interesting because I started this just because that was where there was a gap in my week. When I get up on Sunday morning, I think, oh, it's Money Sunday. And I sit down and I do whatever I do with my finances. And the other thing that does is, today's Thursday. Well, I've got some bills to pay. Nope, I pay those bills on Sunday morning. I'm not going to interrupt my Thursday because I know when that's on my calendar. And I don't, it's amazing. It's been very freeing. And it's just an example. It can be applied to any of the other categories or whatever is important to you. And it keeps you out of the whirlwind of distractions is the bottom line on that. So I really think that that is it. That's as much as we had there. Yeah.
There was one other point, and I just see it here in my notes, and I just want to take 2 seconds because I thought it was impactful. And that was when you're dealing with your 411, remember, we want you to be in relationship with your goals, and your 411 is the one document that you should actually have in front of you. It should be in your office or whatever, but this is what one mega agent said. She said that she checks her 411 in the morning before she checks her email, before she checks her phone. And this was why: to remind herself what her priorities are before she starts dealing with the rest of the world and what their priorities are. That way she could filter their needs based on what her goals are. And I thought, well, if that isn't control, I don't know what is. If that isn't freeing to give yourself more time to stay on task, to follow what you want, and to be more ready to dig in to those things when it's appropriate. Remember, that's where we started. Planning, goal setting is to allow you to be appropriate in the moment.
And I will tag on to that as well. I've always been fascinated by a statement that Mark Willis made a decade ago from the stage when he was the president of Keller Williams. And it was something that Gary Keller said to him. And Gary Keller asked Mark Willis, how does it make you feel to know that there are people who are doing twice as much as you in half the time? That's like, whoa, pooh, holy moly. But that statement is always in the back of my head, that this whole thing of I'm too busy, that's BS, plain and simple. And people who are accomplishing at a very high level have figured it out.
Yes.
And somebody said on one of these sessions, the statement, I don't have time, means it's not a priority to me.
Yes.
Think about that.
Exactly.
What are that calls you to be very clear about what your priorities are. And you will have time for everything that you need to do. And that includes family, certainly, number one.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Cool.
I hope that was helpful. Any questions? Any Ahas. So this call that we keep referring to, it's open to anybody who wants to join. You can jump on by going to pivotshiftcall.com. We started about 7:45 in the morning. The real call starts at 8, but we do like a pre-show because we've all become like family. So we chat with each other. They run 20 minutes. We do all of this in 20
Yeah.
minutes, and it is remarkable. It's quite remarkable. I encourage anyone to just pop in, just see.
James takes up a paragraph most often from the Shift book
Right.
and kind of elaborates on it. And it's so
And then
fascinating.
we talk about it.
And then we talk about it, and then we just talk about it.
And
And
there's amazing high rollers on the call. And so everybody is so generous and kind with their time and talent and knowledge. It is, you can reach out to them offline. I mean, it has been an amazing, uplifting experience.
very good. And clarifying, a very clarifying experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. I really thank you all for being here today. It's been a pleasure. It was fun for me. How about you, Donna?
It was great. I really enjoyed it. I really did. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming and hanging in there.
Debbie,
Thank you.
Donna,
Thank
Thank you for
one-
doing it.
You
One
know,
que-
what a reach all of us.
I
Wait,
think
one-
Liddy has a question.
Yeah, one question. First of all, amazing, and thank you so much. This brings a lot of clarity. And I kind of like have what Ryan was saying before about a lot of thoughts, not knowing where to start and what to write down. But I wanted to ask you, I see you have both written and things are typed. And what would you know, what is your advice in terms of how to keep this? Because I often think it's a dynamic thing that's constantly changing and you're adjusting constantly. And I end
So-
up having a lot of different notes and Post-its.
So here's, I'll tell you what I do. So when I'm creating, I'm doing it by hand. I can't create by typing. And yet, once I get my GPS to what I feel is what's going to be my GPS for this year, then I do type it. The 411, I don't do on my computer. I print out the sheets and I do them by hand weekly. But that's me. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that you do it. And whichever style speaks to you or is going to make you consistent, just do that.
And I've typed the GPS because it's more of a steady document. We don't make a lot of changes to it. Although this is another little piece. We are making edits every 3 months. So we're kind of doing what's called the 12-week year. And we're just going back, and one of the things that James Shaw emphasized was we do reflection and then projection.
Right.
So the reflection part and the analysis of what has happened in the last month or the last quarter, very important to
Yep.
keep you on track to project into the next month or
Yeah.
quarter. What do you need to do to stay on track for your goals? That way you have 12, at least 12 evaluation periods that will not let you get so far off track. You can catch up. You can bring yourself even.
Yeah, that's the whole point of all these tools, is to first define what you want for your life and then to set off on the path. Just like if you're in an airplane, if you know any pilots in your life, half of the time they're off course, but they know it quickly enough so they can make it to whatever their destination is. They don't get all the way over to Tahiti when they were trying to be getting to Chicago. They have steps along the way where they're checking it out. And I'm glad that Debbie brought up the 12-week year, because that's a real big focus right now, and everybody's like all about that. And it's a great book, and it's a great different way of thinking at it. And yet, in a way, it fits very much into this. To me, the 12-week year is a way to achieve really super hyper focus on particular tasks or one task in a short period of time. I used to run around calling it the week before I went on vacation. I mean, it's amazing when you have a deadline. My JetBlue flight is leaving whether I'm on it or not. So I want to be on it. So what do? You push stuff that doesn't matter aside, you focus on the stuff that really is important, and then you get on the plane. So that, to me, the 12-week year can fit inside of all of these things, as long as you know. Somebody, if it was Jennifer, maybe somebody said, do you roll it over? Well, yeah, you do roll it over. And yet you want to be hyper focused on that thing that you rolled over, so that that rollover doesn't keep happening. Maybe it's some other systemic type of problem that you need to address. Maybe it's something you really need to focus on. So that's why it's that 12 weeks, you don't say, it's only January. You know, I got, well, it's only March. Yeah, no, you have a 12-week period that is unto itself that you need to get stuff achieved in.
And that mindset is 9/10 of what keeps your income consistent. And that's huge, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Okay, guys,
All right, thank you.
thanks so much. Okay,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.